Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Roaming Preppers Monday news and headlines from around the globe. As always, I'm your host, Pete, and thank you for joining me. I normally premiere this video, so if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the chat. I'll also throw some fun surveys and Q&As in there. Now, if for some reason I don't make my own premiere, which has happened because of my work schedule, please feel free to put any questions you have below the video after it's done. If you like and subscribe, that's always appreciated. Sharing is nice too. And if you want to give me a thumbs down because the news sucks, that's okay. So, grab some popcorn, grab a chocolate bar or a shot of vodka, depending on what your day's been like, and let's get started with the headlines. So, despite people calling us conspiracy theorists, Reuters News reports Maui Wildfire victims fear a land grab that may threaten Hawaiian culture. There have been reports of unscrupulous companies offering to buy the land from the people. Now, what's going to make it complicated is a lot of the people have died, so their next of kin need to be informed, and you know how things get when people are splitting an estate after someone passes away. So I feel for the folks in Maui, not just because of the fire and the fatalities there, but the drama that is following. This is one of those situations you need to consider, and folks, don't forget, have a will or an estate plan or even a letter explaining what your desires are after you're gone. It will make your family's life so much easier, so it doesn't put a lot of decisions on them. And as always, they're blaming it on global warming and climate change, which I'm sure is partly a factor. Mismanagement of the properties is also a factor, but we won't talk about that because that makes us bad people, apparently. Moving on, COVID mask mandates make a comeback according to Newsweek. Newsweek states that the COVID mask mandates will be coming back. As a matter of fact, one school district in the great state of Texas is already shut down because apparently all the kids in the elementary school got COVID in the first 2 weeks, which is kind of comical. I know in the old way of thinking, unless the kid was in really bad shape, you let them get sick and they got better and their little bodies kind of got a natural immunity. Obviously, if you're at higher risk, obesity, risk of stroke, etc., you may want to talk to your doctor, but I find it funny. And then, of course, the New York Post says, don't believe the doomsayers. The newer variants are actually rather mild. Imagine that. It makes several passes through society, and all of a sudden, humans get immune. This is not what the companies want there, right? They want to make those $100 billion like that company that shall not be named. So on October 4th, FEMA is planning a nationwide emergency alert test. Now it's funny, when President number 45 did this, everyone freaked out and thought the president was going to blow up the internet. Literally blow it up, like with a firecracker or something. They were on the news and Twitter crying and freaking out, which is just silly. In any case, this is actually the first big one of its kind because it's going to incorporate digital TV, even if you don't have cable, like the antenna TV, plus cable, plus internet, plus cell phones, which on one hand is very cool because if something bad goes down, I'd really like to know. On the flip side, if someone hacks this shit and then they decide, oh, guess what? There's a ballistic missile alert, which happened in Hawaii, everyone's going to freak out, and we're going to see an instantaneous SHTF that's actually self-inflicted by stupidity. So, but anyway, October 4th, the alternate is October 11th. Mark the date. Now, of course, if things get really bad and the lights go out like they do for this poor lady here, you may want to consider having a battery-powered radio, because a lot of AM and even the older FM towers still have battery backup and they can transmit via the airwaves, and I'd rather know something than nothing. So, keeping up with the situation in Europe, Germany is investigating the attempted murder of a Russian journalist who apparently was talking smack about the current president of Russia and wound up being poisoned. As a matter of fact, it was so bad they are considering it an attempted murder. This is not the first time our friends in Moscow decided to poison, radiate, contaminate, or make fall out of a window or some other random incident to someone they didn't like. The most recent is our friend Mr. Prigozhin, whose plane spontaneously came spiraling down. Now, folks, as an engineer, and specifically an aerospace engineer, I've seen airplanes fail. When the Lockerbie plane blew up back in 93, whenever you guys remember that one, that thing came apart in midair because the bomb blew it apart. So an intact plane spinning sounds like it got shot down, but that's just me. So the Hill reports that the technologies to enhance the power grid exist. We just need to deploy them. Imagine that. We're not deploying the technology that we could to protect our grid, which is just silly. This not only goes in line with the quote-unquote green energy, but it actually makes the grid more resilient in the event of hacks, EMPs, etc., etc. But everyone's dragging their feet because it costs money and the power grid companies are being stupid. For those of you who don't believe me, go read 1 Second After, and I believe the foreword was written by Newt Gingrich, and they investigated this back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and they're like, we need to do this stuff. So let's see, we have the tech. Will they put the money there instead of sending it to other places? Maybe we should make our grid functional. Yet, if you can't plug in your stupid Tesla, then obviously the grid is not sufficient. So, I'm going to go down the tinfoil hat trail, and the Maui theory about blue objects being saved from wildfires is baseless according to Newsweek. Now, I have seen some tests with commercial lasers where they zap a red, yellow, green, and blue object, and the only one that doesn't get zapped is blue. I can't speak to that because a lot of it depends on the frequency of the laser. Roy G. Biv, you guys remember that from high school science. B is in the middle, at the end of the spectrum. So according to the That Mother Is Not Real girl, as you all remember on the airplane, she says this isn't real, and so does Newsweek. Now, on the flip side, does it mean that DEW weapons do not exist? No, I'm pretty confident we have those toys floating around somewhere. Keep in mind, don't forget the Chinese satellite that was sending little green lasers down to get a really accurate topographical map of Hawaii back in January. Have you forgotten that? So don't forget that. I wanted to bring this one back. This is an older story. Highway landings of A10 Warthogs in various locations in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio. The Air Force has still been doing this. They're training to get their pilots used to using ad hoc runways. Now, when they built the U.S. highway grid, that was under the Eisenhower administration because he, as a general, understood the importance. Of course, that would be me crashing a UFO I stole from Area 51 because I don't know how to drive the motherfucker. But anyway, enjoy the UFO, but yeah, keep an eye out. I'd love to see A10 Warthogs try and take off from some of these roads in West Texas where the drilling rig trucks basically broke the highway. We'd have a bunch of broken A10s on the floor. But I'm glad to see the Air Force is planning for an asymmetric fight, and then it makes you wonder, why are they doing it? Just saying. So Governor Whitmer, once again, is threatening the right to drive. So according to this new plan she has in that state, which has lost its freaking mind, they're going to use GPS apps on your car, specifically your electric car, because they all have a GPS, to track your mileage and usage and then tax you accordingly. The more you drive, the more you pay. Of course, for folks who can't afford a Tesla, they'll use an app on your phone. It's already getting challenged, and my opinion is the same as Red Foreman's. She's a dumbass. And the older I get, the more I relate to Red Foreman, who really is like my dad, but he's not Spanish, because my dad would have said something in Spanish. But anyway, I digress. Moving on, we don't need any more brilliant ideas from governors of states that they've actually ruined. So Iran is got a Brics invitation. For those of you not familiar, Brics is an alternative currency system to the United States petrodollar, and Iran shrugs off the outcast status in the West. a lot of the sanctions the United States has been pushing on other countries are really not turning out to be effective. And the reason they're not is because they're finding other places to play. We've embargoed Russia's oil for a hot minute, yet Russia's making a boatload of money off of oil because they're selling it to China and India, who really don't give a crap about what our president's saying. Personally, I think our president and our leadership are so impaired that other countries are really not respectful of us anymore. It's depressing, but it's true. They're trying to undo the dollar. Now, I have heard a theory that someone said this whole Brics thing is a setup in order to crash the other economies. Who knows? Just a reminder for the stock market watching folks, right? Whenever COVID comes up, it messes with the market. It messes with oil, and there's a chart showing stocks and oil versus the COVID number of confirmed cases. You notice, though, after the initial crash or the initial drop, the markets picked up. Where I'm going with this chart, folks, is at the end of the day, life goes on. Society have gone through the Black Plague, they've gone through the Dark Ages, the barbarians sacked Rome, Rome destroyed Egypt. We've been messing with each other throughout history. And at the end of the day, people and societies move on. So one of the most important things for you to remember as a prepper, be adaptable. Always look for that option. The folks who dig in are the ones who usually wind up suffering the most. Doesn't mean compromise your morals. It means be able to modify what you're doing for the situation at hand. So the analysts over in the financial news are saying that there's a bearish market. This is not the end of the world, folks. When a bear market, think about it, bull market, the bull uses his horns and pulls up, the bear swipes down. So the bear, they're expecting a market to drop. This is one of those cases where if you invest the right way, if you choose to invest, you hold on to your money. Now, a bearish market also means sometimes costs get thrown onto the consumer, and that's the important topic for us. So understand, you see a bearish market, that's going to mean companies are going to struggle, which means in order to make their books right, they have to charge more. Ultimately, it drops in our pocketbook, right? It drops on our bank account. So buying the things in bulk, being smart about what you do and how you do it, is the way you get around situations like this. This is not to panic. This is so you make the right steps now, so if and when the market gets bearish, or it takes a dive and it makes a big correction, you're in the right place for it. So a case study and something I actually went through in 2008, Hurricane Ike hit Texas. The state designated zones to evacuate. As you can see, those were the original zones. However, once the governor declared zone yellow to evacuate, the whole damn city left at once. Now, if you don't think a city can evacuate at once, just drive through Houston, New York, or LA during rush hour. That's basically the city evacuating. The people are just not freaked out. This turned out to be a mess. There was a large-scale traffic jam. Actually, from the north side of Houston to the Woodlands, which is normally a 30-minute drive, maybe 45 if you take the scenic route through the back roads, was taking people 12 hours. Folks were running out of gas on the highway. A bus full of old folks caught fire. Their little oxygen tanks blew up. A lot of people actually died in the evacuation, and this was before the storm had even made landfall. I wound up getting across the city in 30 minutes because everyone was stuck on the highway, as you can see in that picture, and I took the side roads. I just stopped at the stoplights. There was nobody on the side roads because they were all freaked out. Bottom line is, the case study here, no back roads, no alternative paths. When you see everyone else freaking out, that's not the time to evacuate. Either evacuate before they go, or if you're going to leave, wait till the traffic is gone and then bail out the next day, if you have that time. The other option is to bug in and have everything packed and ready in case you gotta run. So as the weather gets cooler, we're going to go into hiking season. People are going to go hunting, they're going to go fishing, they're going to go hiking because it's not 112 outside. Be sure to wear suitable shoes for the environment. Don't wear flip-flops when you're shooting guns or out in the woods because you're going to hurt yourself. Have extra clothes in case you get lost overnight or you get rained on. You can get hypothermia from being rained on. Have extra water and snacks if you're a diabetic or you have physical ailments. Account for that. Hike with a friend if possible, or at least let people know where you are, where you're parked, where your deer blind is or your campsite is, and how you intend to get there. If something happens, they'll know roughly where to look for you. And as always, check in with the ranger station or the local park police. Let folks know where you are. And folks, just a reminder, thousands of children are trafficked every week. I'm going to keep honking this horn. Obviously, you can call the Human Trafficking Hotline, 888-373-7888. You can also just call 911 or your local sheriff or your county or city police and have them check out a situation. There are a lot of signs you can look for with kids who are being trafficked. Something we went through in the Guard. Any of you who've been responders have probably been trained as well, or if you've been a teacher or around any of those folks. But you look for things like afraid to talk to people, won't make eye contact, show visible bruises that are not consistent with typical kids, because my kids fell off of shit all the time and had black eyes and bruises and cuts, but that was normal kid stuff. If you see a kid acting very skittish, they're underfed, and remember, it may not just be your kids or your grandkids, it could be their friends. Keep an eye out for the other kids, because sadly, even if a kid has a family, that family may not be taking care of them. So I've always tried to be that dad, and my wife that mom, that if those kids were in trouble, they could talk to us. So keep the door open, intelligently and carefully, but keep the door open. A lot of kids just have nowhere to go and nobody to turn to. Keep an eye out, pay attention. There are a lot of good videos on how to identify trafficking and abuse on YouTube and on the internet. You can also talk to local law enforcement. They'd be happy to do a seminar with concerned citizens. And I'll do my silly pitch. If you want to support the channel, I now have the link that has all my links in my YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Rumble, etc. profiles. If you're getting ReadyWise, Palmetto State Armory, 1791 holsters, ETA Living, which is that water bottle, Wallaby, whatever, I'd rather you order something and you get a discount as opposed to just donating. And eventually I may get around to doing a subscription service. I just don't have the time, and I'm not going to ask people to subscribe if I can't do something for you. That just bothers me. But if you need these products, you want to save some money, feel free to use those codes or hit the link in that bio thing, whatever the hell it is. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our weekly news and headlines from around the globe. I hope you found something interesting or useful. Like I said, don't forget to like or dislike, but I'd prefer the like, but that's okay. The news may have depressed you. Feel free to share. That does help me. And as always, collaborate, be smart, plan out what you're doing. Don't prep from a place of panic. Prep from a place of thoughtfulness and a little bit of faith and prayer. Never hurts, right? The big man watches over us. And if nothing else, if you're prepared and other people aren't, you can put some vodka in your Coke, go to the mall and watch everyone else panic, which I have done, and it's kind of amusing. Anyway, all jokes aside, ladies and gentlemen, God bless, Godspeed, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.